out of the three that seemed to be legitimate candidates, right? DeVries, McCollum, and Brunell. Brunell was probably third for
Yeah,
me,
100%.
honestly, and I'm not high on McCollum, right? I think that there's a lot to be seen with him, and I didn't want to take a risk. That's why I was high. Out of all three, Tucker or Darian was my number one out of those three realistic candidates, and um, I think, yeah, just going along with the expectations and all that stuff. I think the expectations to where we ended are being kind of lost in the muck, and I don't want to be like a downer at all because that's not what I'm doing. But I do want to point out where, we did start this conversation as like Rab Johns and people around the program legitimately tweeting and saying that we're going after Brad, we're going after Drew, we're going after TJ, and you know we didn't end up in a ballpark that was even close, and that's okay, right? It needs to be pointed out because so many times we find ourselves thinking like, "Oh my god, yeah, that guy would leave." I mean, there was people like 6 months ago saying that Bruce Pearl was, "Oh, he's a shoo-in to leave Auburn to come to Indiana." "Oh, Dusty, he'd leave Michigan whenever to come to Indiana."
Listen, if you spend
No.
enough time staring at the computer, you can start to build a case for anybody.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself. So, yeah, I mean, I
We did
think
it. Brad and I built 10 cases for guys, and one of them ended up being in the final quote unquote discussion.
I did it, and I was a skeptic, so I had to talk myself into a lot of different people. I mean, Brad's the first one that put me on the Cronin wave, I will say, so shout out Goom. But I think it's gonna be very, very interesting to see how this hire ends up, right? Because like I said earlier, it's a big risk for Dolson because if we get to year two, mid-year two, and like this program's looking anywhere near what people think it looks like now, things are gonna get hasty and everyone's gonna, come after Dolson because it was such an important hire. But also, like, what can he do if the top 8 coaches that you ask are not there's not even a chance of them leaving, you hire the ninth, like that's all
Yeah,
you can
well,
really do.
that's why I thought when the McCollum smoke started on like Friday or Saturday, that there was some like serious like actual weight to that one because it felt like we talked about it I think before the session went live, but if like this is like Dolson's job is on this hire. Like if this doesn't work out, like it's directly tied to Scott Dolson. You have to assume
100%
that way.
agree.
And like as much as like we literally had a podcast, Sigs Inside Indiana Football Podcast. Like in my bio for Twitter is Kurt Signetti saved my life. I don't think that would even be enough equity to survive two unsuccessful basketball hires. So if you're going to take a swing on a guy, the way McCollum is presented and the way the real like basketball, I'll call them basketball nerds out of a term of endearment, but the way the basketball nerds talk about that guy is like he's the guy. So I was like, all right, if you're gonna just like if you whiffed on your first five, six, seven guys and you're just gonna take a swing on somebody, like I actually thought McCollum may have been the choice. I started to talk myself into him a little bit more than it sounds like you did. He's got a clip from like the beginning of his Drake intro press conference where he's like, if you have Pons, I'm there. And I was like so ready to tweet that.
I
Be
saw
like,
that.
it's been McCollum the whole time. Like we have Pons. But no, I think when you take like the concern for McCollum, you talk about DeVries not being like a win the press conference guy. It was like McCollum is very much like very to himself, very reserved. It's like, could he handle that? Like, we'll call it a circus that is the behind the scenes of Indiana basketball. It's like,
Allegedly, he's like a tweet reader too, and he gets super pissed off. So that's what I've heard too. So that's why I was like, eh.
sounds like he'd fit right in, to be honest.
Yeah, with us. Not with
Yeah,
not
you be on
with
the
fucking
show.
Brad Underwood and
You could be
Izzo.
one of my guests.
Yeah, seriously. Ben McCollum, if you're watching, hop on the pod, brother. How did it feel to not get the job?
Hop on.
No, I
Yeah,
agree though.
I think the slow pace of like Ben, like if we're gonna talk about the top three, like Brad Brownell, like yeah, he's been at Clemson for 15 years, only has a yes, it's Clemson, but like 4 tournament appearances and 1 Elite Eight to show. Like I'm not, you shouldn't even really be evaluating tournament performance when it should be about like how many times you make the tournament. He's only made it 4 out of 15, even at like a tough place like Clemson. Like ACC is a place that back in the day gets like 7-8 bids, and he still wasn't able to make it, all that consistently. And then look at Ben McCollum, yes, proven winner, top, 4, 4 natties D2 level, right, something like that, and obviously 30 wins in his first year at D1 makes your eyebrows raised. Then you kind of look at the style of play they do, very like, is this sustainable at the Power 5 level? Like
Yeah.
that's too big of a question mark to overlook. Whereas DeVries, it's like, okay, proven runner, won at multiple stops. Sure, it was a short stint at West Virginia, but there was adversity, and he still basically got them in the tournament by, the public. And yeah, and he's proven, yeah. And his only question mark is, can he recruit? And he showed in his 1 year at West Virginia he can. So it's almost like he's the only guy available that checks all the boxes. For me, this is
Yeah.
an A higher.
Yeah.
If we're
I
gonna
Here we
grade,
agree.
go
if we're gonna do the
grading
grading
it.
thing, like if we're gonna I don't know,
Especially just given the
like you
circumstance,
can't
right?
guess the future, but
Well,
like when you look at
100%.
like what you're looking for a guy that you can get, like, can you do better than DeVries realistically? I don't know. I don't.
In defense of a lot of the blogs, and us included, the people who put together big boards that in it turns out were just completely unrealistic. Like a lot of people were just going off of the information that was given to them. There was that one Pete Thamel, like they're looking for a proven head coach who's won in the tournament, yada yada,
Yeah,
like that whole
exactly.
like spiel.
They
And
never
that
said
was
one in
kind
the
of,
tournament. Never said it.
yes, he did.
No, he said proven winner. That's it.
You,
Consistent
well,
tournament appearances, maybe.
I can't wait to stat correct this.
Yeah, do it. Dare
Well,
you.
while you do that, I'll go kind of on my Ben McCollum thing to piggyback off what Brad was saying. Yeah, I mean, the style of play was a concern, right? So there's a box not really checked. The temperament was a concern after I looked into it, watched his interviews. I definitely think he's a great coach. I definitely think he's a great leader. I think, like we talked about earlier, with so many of the other bells and whistles that come with this job, that's kind of what worried me. That along with style of play, that's enough for me to like not even right, not even want to waste time thinking about a guy. Because let's be real here, like we don't need a guy with slow style of play that can't handle the fucking the circus. Because that's what this is.
I don't see. I'll push back slightly and say that he's unproven in his ability to handle the circus. So I don't just want to completely write off his ability to do so. I do think, though, at least based on the reports and who knows about reports, it does seem like he had some hesitancy on whether he wanted to step into that spotlight. So I do think it's a fair question.
And yeah, no, and that's enough, right? Like that's enough for me to be like, if you don't know, then you can't go. For a slogan, there's the slogan. If you don't know, you can't go. If you don't know if you can take the job, you can't go to Bloomington,
Yeah.
right? Bloomington,
No,
you don't just walk
that's
into
fair.
Bloomington.
Yeah,
You gotta
100%.
be, and that's why I do think like where it's like I also don't know if DeVry can handle the circus or DeVry or how do you say it, DeVries?
I mean, if
I
he
think
wins, Circus is going to be fine.
Is that
exactly.
it?
Like, if he wins 20 games every year, it should, like, in theory, it should
In
be fine.
theory,
In
in theory,
theory,
but
it
also
should, like,
like him winning 20 games every year, like that's a very tough thing to do in the Big Ten, and especially the way the Big Ten's shaping out to be. I but like for McCollum, good coach, great coach, right? You can tell he's a nerd, a basketball junkie.
that's what I liked about him.
But I kind of got the vibe where it's like, yo, I know, like it kind of felt like I'm the smartest guy in the room vibe, which it works sometimes, right? Like
Yeah.
Sig, it works for Sig, not to bring Sig into this, but
When you
we're
have
not
the resume he
comparing.
does, it's kind of justified, too.
Yeah, no, it's justified, but it's also like you're the guy who's getting called up from JV to go play varsity.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you average 30 in JV, you're good.
You won
We
JV player of the year. All right, congrats.
Yeah,
Like,
we all average 30, like it's a different ball game. So, and same with Drake, right? Like, yeah, Drake's a good program because DeVries, funny enough. Like, I'm not saying that his success this year has anything to do with that, but like, it's 1 year, it's not the best competition, and I was not ready to take a flyer
Yeah.
on a guy. I just wasn't.
I'll
After
take
the
the
whole
guy
I
that's
mean, we were at IU during Archie. We watched the flyer, and we watched it fucking get swept away in the wind because we literally could not have fun watching IU basketball when we were in college.
Ben McCollum
So
does remind me too much of Archie Miller, which is like the
little
biggest.
guy, smartest guy in the room, kind of standoffish. Yeah, so that's why I was out on him.
I'm not gonna
Brownell,
put I'm not gonna put that I'm not gonna put that on Ben McCollum. I'm just not.
I will. I'll do
I
it.
won't.
I'll do
I'm not
it.
gonna put
But
Archie Miller on Ben
yeah, because he's gonna be
McCollum.
at Iowa tomorrow, so I'm gonna he's gonna become a rival
Yeah,
instantly.
he's the new Fran, like the short Fran.
Fran's like tall.
No,
He's like 6'5", right? Like he's a
Fran's
big guy.
yes. I'm gonna miss Fran. I'm gonna miss Fran. On another note, shout out Fran. Pour one
Yeah.
out.
He did good for them. He did good for them. He was
Shout
there
out,
for like
Fred.
20 years. Sienna before that. Good
Nah,
coach.
Fran's an
He'll find
underrated
somewhere good.
coach, man.
He'll find
Fran's an
somewhere good.
underrated coach. I agree. He said he doesn't want to be done.
Yeah, Villanova.
Um, but also
No,
to get
I
my
want to
thoughts out on the search. Sorry, one sec. I just want to get this out real quick. I think where we ended up, where we started, in terms of kind of what you were talking about, Keys, you're reporting on the information that's reported, right? Like there were legitimate sources saying, oh, they're going after Brad. Oh, they're going after blah, 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 blah. Those were from legitimate sources. So when that happens, it's either ineptitude and incompetence, or it's like, corrupt. And most of them, like even though I absolutely hate Flab Johns now, it's not
I like that name.
corruption. It's a great name. It's a great name. But it's not corruption, right? Like he's trying to get the scoop. So he listens to the wrong person and shoots something out and then it goes bananas. And I think where we ended up was probably a lot closer to where maybe Scott expected. I don't think Scott went into the hire thinking that he was going to be able to get any of those like top 7 guys, right? And I hope he gave a look to McDermott. I hope he gave a look to Mick, and I hope he heard the no because, those were more along the line of what I was kind of thinking. And I think this is maybe a tier down in terms of like body of work and, what's been done and sure thing. But, out of young people that we're going to give a shot to, this is he has the highest floor, DeVries. So I think people are going to be upset because where it started, but I don't think it's anything to like really like be that upset over. I'm sure we went after all the top guys. I just think they said no. And if anything, be upset at yourself for having these expectations that we're going to get, you know, John Wooden from the grave and Bobby Knight to team up and come coach the team.
Yeah, I mean,
So it's
DeVries was
interesting.
one of the hottest names last year in the cycle.
Exactly.
And no one thought he was available, and we just went and got him. Like, I think it's a better hire than what people are going to make it out to be.
I agree. And I'm not even like I'm not jumping out of my seat for him. I just think it's like a better hire than people are kind of saying right now.
Mm-hmm.